couldn't resist needling her. "I'm sure you do," Margot said, but she didn't react beyond a slightly sour tone. She'd grown adept at avoiding the kind of arguments that used to flare up between them, despite Gia sometimes baiting her. "So 7 or 8 out of what? About 60 are active again? For 1 month out of the year, the ratio's quite a bit better than that," she said as the shopping cart clanged home, making her feel secure enough to walk away from it. "The rest of the group gets together for an online Christmas party in December." "How many people come to that?" Margot sounded as if she felt left out, but she'd never shown any interest in the book group. "Probably 15 or 20, but it's not always the same 15 or 20. She opened the door to her red Tesla Model 3, which signaled the computer to start the heater, something she was grateful for since she hadn't worn a heavy enough coat for the brisk October morning. Coeur d'Alene, Idaho didn't usually turn this cold until November or December. The car's Bluetooth picked up the call as Margot asked, "Why haven't you ever mentioned it?" Now that they lived 1,300 miles apart, there were a lot of things she didn't tell her sister. It wasn't until she'd left her hometown behind that she'd felt she could live a truly authentic life, one without the constant unfavorable comparisons to her perfect sibling. But that wasn't why she hadn't mentioned the book group. She'd assumed her sister wouldn't want to hear about it. Margot had been mortified when Gia challenged the gaggle of well-meaning but misguided women from the PTA who'd descended on room 23 on back-to-school night, insisting Mr. Hart, head of the English department, drop The Catcher in the Rye, The Outsiders, and The Handmaid's Tale from the honors English reading list. Gia had expected her favorite teacher to stand up for the books she loved by explaining why they were so important. She'd known how much he'd love those books, too. Instead, just to avoid a fight, he'd caved in immediately, which was what had incited her to start a club that championed the books they'd targeted, as well as others. That was the first time Mr. Hart had let her down, but it wouldn't be the last. "If you'd ever joined the club, you'd be on the email list," she said as she backed out of the parking space. "I would've, but you know me, I don't really read." Her sister would not have joined. The banned books club was far too controversial for Margot. It would have required a bit of rebellion, something she seemed incapable of. And maybe she didn't read much fiction, but Gia knew her to consume the occasional self-help tome. That was probably how she reassured herself she was still the best person she knew. Because if there was anyone who didn't need a self-help book, it was Margot. Their parents' expectations were more than enough to create her boundaries. "You should try reading along with us now and then. It might broaden your horizons." As good as Margot was, she had a mind like a steel trap, one that was always closed, especially when faced with any information that challenged what she already believed. She lived inside a bubble of confirmation bias. The only facts and ideas that could permeate it were those that supported her worldview. "I'm happy with my horizons being right where they are, thank you." "You don't see the limitations?" "Are you trying to offend me?" she asked. Gia bit back a sigh. That was the difference between them. Margot would sacrifice anything to maintain her position as their parents' favorite child, to gain the approval of others, especially her husband, and be admired by the community at large. Growing up, she'd kept her room tidy, gotten straight A's, and played the piano in church. And these days, she was a stay-at-home mom with 2 children, someone who made a hot dish, what most people outside the Midwest would call a casserole, for any neighbor, friend, or acquaintance who might be having surgery or suffering some kind of setback. Her conventionalism was, in certain ways, something to be admired. As the black sheep of the family, Gia knew better than to try to compete with Margot. That wasn't possible for someone who couldn't take anything at face value. She had to question rules, challenge authority, and play devil's advocate.